You know that sinking feeling when you toss another half-empty serum bottle into the recycling bin, the same week you're reading articles about microplastics showing up in human blood work? Yeah, that's the tension eco-effective beauty is designed to solve. Products that deliver actual clinical results without requiring you to write an apology letter to the planet. I'm Sarah Ling-Miller, and I spent the last few years figuring out which sustainable formulations actually work and which ones just smell like a farmer's market while doing nothing for your melasma. You're listening to Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. Quick note before we get started, the research, data, and everything you're about to hear is written and verified by real people, but the voice you're hearing is AI generated. We do this so we can keep putting out high-quality, thoroughly researched content on a consistent schedule without burning out our actual humans. Now, if you've been listening for a while, thank you. It means a lot that you keep coming back. And if you're new here, welcome. We cover evidence-based beauty that won't wreck your budget or insult your intelligence. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today, we're breaking down eco-effective beauty, what it actually means, which products genuinely perform, and where you're just paying for pretty packaging. This isn't about switching to overpriced, clean brands that have beautiful packaging but questionable performance. This is about understanding which sustainable formulations match or outperform their conventional counterparts, what the ingredient percentages actually mean, and whether you're paying for performance or just good marketing. So let's start with what eco-effective beauty actually means. The term eco-friendly has become pretty much meaningless in the beauty industry. Every brand slaps a leaf on their bottle and calls it a day. Eco-effective beauty is different. It's a performance-first approach that prioritizes both environmental sustainability and clinical efficacy. We're talking about products formulated with biodegradable actives, sustainable sourcing, minimal water usage, and recyclable packaging that also contain the same concentration of proven ingredients you'd find in prestige formulations. The term comes from the broader eco-effective concept developed by architect William MacDonald and chemist Michael Braungart in their work on circular economy design. The idea that products should be designed from the start to be perpetually reusable, not just less bad. In beauty, this means formulations using biotechnology-derived actives, like fermented hyaluronic acid or lab-ground squalene instead of petroleum derivatives. It means packaging designed for actual recycling streams and supply chains that don't decimate ecosystems. Here's what matters for your morning routine. Eco-effective products use ingredients that break down naturally without accumulating in waterways. They're manufactured using renewable energy when possible, and they skip the microplastics, silicones that persist for decades, and palm oil derivatives linked to deforestation. But, and this is crucial, they maintain the same active percentages and molecular weights that make conventional products work. A 5% niacinamide serum is still 5% niacinamide, whether it's fermented from corn or synthesized in a lab. The difference is what happens after it goes down your drain. Now let's talk about how eco-effective beauty actually works. The science here gets interesting, especially when you're trying to formulate effective actives without the usual stabilizers and preservatives. Traditional skincare relies heavily on silicones for texture, petroleum-derived emulsifiers for stability, and synthetic preservatives that last forever. Literally, some of these compounds don't biodegrade. Eco-effective formulations replace these with plant-derived or biotechnology alternatives that perform the same function but break down within weeks of entering water systems. Active ingredient sourcing is where things get technical. Take retinol. Conventional versions are synthesized from petrochemicals. Eco-effective alternatives use bioidentical retinoids derived from fermentation processes or plant precursors like bakuchiol, which studies show delivers comparable results to 0.5% retinol without the photosensitivity issues. For hyaluronic acid, instead of extracting it from rooster combs, yes, really, or bacterial fermentation using non-renewable feedstock,
Eco-effective brands use fermentation processes powered by renewable substrates, like plant sugars. The molecular weight is identical. You can get the same 50 to 1,000 kilodalton low molecular weight HA for dehydration or 1,500 to 2,000 kilodalton high molecular weight for surface plumping. Texture and delivery systems are trickier without silicones. Conventional primers and serums use dimethicone and cyclopentasiloxane for that silky slip, but these don't biodegrade. Eco-effective formulations use alternatives like hemisqualane, which is a lightweight plant-derived emollient with a dry-touch finish, plant-derived silicone alternatives from meadowfoam seed oil, or natural esters that mimic silicone's spreadability. The texture isn't always identical. Some eco-effective serums feel slightly tackier on initial application, but the performance metrics like transepidermal water loss reduction and skin elasticity improvements are comparable. Preservation is another challenge. Parabens work brilliantly and have decades of safety data, but they're out for eco-effective formulations due to persistence in aquatic environments. Instead, brands use combinations of preservatives like leuconostoc radish root ferment, which is a bacteriocin that prevents gram-positive bacteria, gluconolactone, which is both a gentle exfoliant and antimicrobial, and sodium levulinate, derived from cornstarch. These systems are effective, but often require refrigeration or have shorter shelf lives, 12 months instead of 36. Packaging innovation matters more than you'd think. Glass is recyclable, but energy-intensive to produce and heavy to ship. Eco-effective brands are using post-consumer recycled plastics in high percentages, 50 to 100%, aluminum packaging that's infinitely recyclable without quality loss, or even innovative materials like sugarcane-derived bioplastics that are commercially compostable. Some brands manufacture in facilities using renewable energy. CeraVe's French facility, for instance, runs on 70% renewable power, and their manufacturing process for ceramide-dominant formulations has comparable environmental impact to smaller green brands while maintaining pharmaceutical quality control.
The supply chain pace is where costs can escalate. Sustainable ingredient sourcing often means smaller production runs, certified organic farming with lower yields and higher costs, and fair trade partnerships. But here's the thing. When you're comparing a $38 eco-effective serum with 10% vitamin C as L-ascorbic acid derived from non-GMO corn fermentation to a $165 luxury serum with the same concentration from the same molecule, you're paying for brand prestige, not better sourcing. So why does eco-effective beauty matter? I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't get into this because I'm some environmental saint. I got into it because after my second pregnancy, my skin was wrecked and I was exhausted, and the idea of rebuilding a routine with products that wouldn't give my kids weird hormonal issues down the line felt necessary, practical, like buying organic milk without obsessing over every single food item. The personal health angle is compelling even if you're skeptical about broader environmental claims. Ingredients like synthetic musks and certain UV filters accumulate in breast milk and have documented endocrine effects. Microplastics from conventional exfoliants, polyethylene beads, show up in blood work. Using products that biodegrade completely means you're not marinated in persistent chemicals while you sleep. For those of us dealing with hormonal skin issues like melasma, perioral dermatitis, or pregnancy-triggered sensitivity, reducing your chemical exposure load while maintaining efficacy isn't woo-woo nonsense, it's risk management. The performance reality is this. For basic formulations like cleansers, moisturizers, and occlusives, eco-effective options match or exceed conventional products. The CeraVe Hydrating Cleanser, check the link below to see the current price, manufactured in France with sustainable practices, has the same ceramide-dominant formula whether you buy the regular or eco-conscious packaging version. A 5% niacinamide plus zinc PCA serum from The Ordinary or the Inky List uses sustainably sourced actives and performs identically to prestige alternatives at 10% of the price.
Where eco-effective formulations excel is in gentle actives for sensitive skin, because many sustainable actives are derived from fermentation or enzymatic processes rather than harsh chemical synthesis. They often come with built-in soothing cofactors. Bakuchiol, a retinol alternative from the bocce plant, delivers comparable wrinkle reduction to 0.5% retinol, but with significantly less irritation, critical when you're dealing with postpartum skin sensitivity or compromised barrier function. The cost analysis gets interesting when you factor in longevity. Many eco-effective products are more concentrated because they're not bulked up with silicone fillers. A 1-ounce serum might last 4 to 5 months instead of 2 to 3, changing the cost per use calculation significantly. Yes, that $28 eco-effective vitamin C serum seems expensive compared to a $12 drugstore version, but if you're using 2 drops instead of 4 or 5 pumps and it stays stable for the full 12 months instead of oxidizing in 6 weeks, the math shifts. Here's what matters at 5:45 in the morning when you have exactly 90 seconds for skincare. Eco-effective beauty gives you clinical results without the guilt hangover, often at price points that compete directly with conventional drugstore options. That's it. That's the whole pitch. Moving on to the different types and variations of eco-effective formulations. Not all sustainable beauty is created equal, and the distinctions actually matter for performance. Biotechnology-derived actives are the gold standard for eco-effective beauty. Think fermented ingredients like hyaluronic acid, peptides, and EGF growth factors, lab-grown compounds like synthetic squalane from sugarcane instead of shark liver, and precision-fermented vitamins. These are molecularly identical to their conventional counterparts, but produced with lower environmental impact. A 2% EGF serum works the same whether the EGF came from bacteria fermentation or animal-derived sources, but the fermented version is stable, scalable, and doesn't require animal tissue. Plant-derived alternatives replace synthetic actives with botanical equivalents. Bakuchiol for retinol, plant peptides from pea or rice protein for collagen boosting, bisabolol from chamomile for anti-inflammation. The challenge here is standardization. Plant ingredients vary in concentration depending on growing conditions, harvest timing, and extraction methods. Look for products that list specific percentages like 1% bakuchiol or 2% alpha bisabolol, rather than vague botanical blend listings. These work best when you're dealing with sensitivity issues or want gentler alternatives to clinical actives. Waterless formulations are having a moment for good reason. A traditional serum is 60 to 80% water, which requires preservation, adds weight for shipping, and provides no actual skincare benefit. Waterless formulations use oils, butters, and active rich bases instead, delivering higher concentrations in smaller packages. A waterless vitamin C powder you mix fresh provides 100% L-ascorbic acid versus the typical 10 to 20% in a water-based serum. The catch? Texture is different, thicker, sometimes greasier, and you're responsible for mixing or activating the product correctly. Not ideal when you're functioning on 5 hours of sleep, but brilliant for maximizing active concentration per dollar spent. Refillable and concentrated systems reduce packaging waste while maintaining performance. You buy a glass bottle once, then purchase concentrated refills in minimal packaging. Brands like Hanny and Care Wise do this for skincare and makeup. The economics make sense. A refill pod costs $18 to $24 versus $35 to $42 for the original product with packaging. The active percentages and formulations are identical. You're just not rebuying the same glass bottles 6 times. The friction point is remembering to actually order refills before you run out, which requires more planning than most of us manage between school pickups and trial prep. Now let's get specific about the actives that matter in eco-effective formulations and how they compare to conventional options. This is where your cost per result analysis really lives. Starting with vitamin C and the stability versus sustainability question. L-ascorbic acid is notoriously unstable. It oxidizes quickly in water-based formulations, especially in clear bottles.
Conventional brands solve this with synthetic stabilizers and opaque packaging. Eco-effective formulations use several approaches. Fermented vitamin C, derived from non-GMO corn at 10 to 15% concentration, delivers the same collagen synthesis and hyperpigmentation reduction as synthetic versions, but comes with added prebiotics that support skin microbiome health. The downside? It's temperature sensitive and needs refrigeration once opened. Brands like Versed and the Inky List offer these at $14 to $20 for 1 ounce versus luxury options at $166 for the same concentration, looking at you SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic. Waterless vitamin C powders sidestep the stability issue entirely. You get 100% pure L-ascorbic acid that you mix fresh with your moisturizer. A 0.35-ounce jar, providing 90 applications, costs $24 to $28, working out to about 27 to 31 cents per use. Clinical studies show that fresh mixed 20% L-ascorbic acid delivers superior results to pre-formulated 15% serums simply because there's zero oxidation. The catch? It stings more, pure acid without buffering agents, and you need to actually mix it each time, adding 30 seconds to your routine. For retinoids, this is where plant-derived alternatives genuinely compete. Bakuchiol at 0.5 to 2% concentration shows comparable improvements in fine lines, elasticity, and photo damage to 0.5% retinol in 12-week clinical trials, but without the irritation, purging, or photosensitivity. It's derived from the bobchi plant through sustainable farming practices in India. The texture is typically pleasant, slightly oily, absorbs in 60 to 90 seconds, and you can use it morning and night without sunscreen paranoia. Price point, $12 to $28 for 1 ounce, with the Ordinary's 0.5% solution at the low end and Biossance 0.5% plus squalene at the high end. The limitation. For severe photo damage or deep wrinkles, prescription tretinoin still wins on speed and intensity, but for maintenance and prevention, Bakuchiol is a legitimate alternative. Let's talk about hyaluronic acid, where molecular weight matters. Conventional HA is often derived from bacterial fermentation using petroleum-derived substrates. Eco-effective versions use fermentation with renewable plant sugar feedstock. The molecule is identical. What matters is the molecular weight distribution. Low molecular weight HA at 50 to 1,000 kilodaltons penetrates deeper, providing actual hydration to the dermis. High molecular weight HA at 1,500 to 2,000 kilodaltons sits on the surface, creating a moisture-retaining film. The best formulations include both. The Ordinary's hyaluronic acid 2% plus B5 includes multi-weight HA and is clinically indistinguishable from $180 luxury serums in hydration efficacy tests. Check the link below to see the current price. The catch with HA, as in low humidity environments below 40% relative humidity, it can actually pull moisture out of your skin if you don't seal it with an occlusive. This isn't an eco-effective versus conventional issue, it's just how the molecule works. Always layer a moisturizer over HA serums, especially if you're in a dry climate or use forced air heating. Niacinamide is the workhorse active. Vitamin B3 is brilliant for eco-effective formulations because it's naturally water-soluble, stable, and inexpensive to produce through fermentation. 5 to 10% niacinamide addresses hyperpigmentation, reduces sebum production, improves barrier function, and has anti-inflammatory properties. It plays well with other actives, including vitamin C, despite what old formulation advice claimed, and works for all skin types. The Inky List niacinamide at around $11 for 1 ounce at 10% concentration, and Good Molecules niacinamide serum at around $6 for 1 ounce at 10% concentration are manufactured using sustainable practices and deliver the same results as prestige options at 1/15 the cost. The texture is lightweight, absorbs in 30 to 60 seconds, and layers beautifully under makeup. One minor complaint, at 10% concentration, some people experience temporary flushing, especially when first introducing it. Start with 5% if you're sensitive, or use it at night only for the first 2 weeks. For ceramides and barrier repair fundamentals, ceramides are lipid molecules critical for skin barrier function. They're naturally present in skin but decline with age, UV exposure, and harsh skin care. Eco-effective formulations use plant-derived ceramides from sources like rice, wheat, or konjac root, or synthetic ceramides identical to human skin ceramides but produced through sustainable fermentation. The ratio matters. Effective formulations use a 3:1:1 ratio of ceramides to cholesterol to fatty acids, mimicking your skin's natural barrier composition. CeraVe hits this ratio consistently. Their PM Facial Moisturizing Lotion delivers the same barrier repair as $60 to $90 prestige creams, backed by actual transepidermal water loss measurements. Now, let's talk about what these products actually feel like when you're applying them in your bathroom at 6 in the morning while your toddler screams about the wrong color spoon. Eco-effective serums tend to be slightly tackier than their silicone-heavy conventional counterparts. That's not a bug, it's a feature of using plant-derived bases instead of dimethicone. You're trading that instant silky slip for formulations that don't accumulate in waterways. The workaround? Use slightly less product, 2 to 3 drops instead of 4 to 5 pumps, and give it 90 seconds to absorb before layering. If you're short on time, apply serum, brush your teeth, then continue with moisturizer. The absorption time is the same, you're just multitasking. Waterless formulations are thicker and more concentrated. Think balm texture, or thick oil rather than liquid serum. These work best applied to damp skin. Splash your face with water, pat semi-dry, then apply 1 to 2 pea-size amounts. The moisture helps spread the product and improve penetration. If you try to apply these to bone-dry skin, you'll struggle with even distribution and potentially end up with greasy patches. Powder actives require mixing, which sounds annoying, but is actually brilliant for travel and performance. A vitamin C powder jar takes up less space than a liquid serum, won't leak in your luggage, and stays stable in hot cars. Mix a tiny amount, about 1/8 teaspoon, with your regular moisturizer each morning. It takes literally 15 seconds and delivers fresher, more potent results than pre-formulated serums sitting on shelves for months. Application order for eco-effective routines follows the same principle as conventional: thinnest to thickest, most active to least active. After cleansing, you do a pH-adjusting toner if using acids or vitamin C. That's optional, takes 5 seconds. Then water-based serums like niacinamide, hyaluronic acid, or peptides with 30 seconds absorption time. Then oil-based serums or treatments like bakuchiol or vitamin C and squalane base. Give it 60 seconds. Then moisturizer, ceramide-rich formula, apply immediately, and sunscreen in the morning only, wait 60 seconds after moisturizer. Total time, 3 to 4 minutes if you're letting things absorb properly, 90 seconds if you're layering quickly because someone just spilled juice on the carpet. Let's do the actual math on what you're paying for performance versus packaging. I've price-checked these at Target, Ulta, and Sephora as of January 2026. And calculated cost per ounce and estimated cost per use based on typical application amounts. For vitamin C serums, the eco-effective option is the Inky List 15% vitamin C plus EGF serum at around $17.99 for 1 ounce. It's got fermented L-ascorbic acid from non-GMO corn, contains EGF from sustainable fermentation, uses PCR plastic packaging with carbon-neutral shipping. Cost per use is about 36 cents using 2 to 3 drops. 50 applications, lasts 4 months with daily use. The conventional drugstore option is CeraVe Skin Renewing Vitamin C Serum. Check the link below to see the current price. With 10% pure vitamin C, ceramides, and hyaluronic acid, standard plastic packaging. Cost per use is about 50 cents using 3 to 4 drops. 50 applications, lasts 4 months. The prestige comparison is SkinCeuticals CE Ferulic at around $166 for 1 ounce. It's 15% L-ascorbic acid, 1% alpha-tocopherol, 0.5% ferulic acid, proprietary stabilization system, glass bottle with dropper. Cost per use is about $3.32 using the same 2 to 3 drops. 50 applications, lasts 4 months. The performance reality in double-blind clinical studies, 15% vitamin C is 15% vitamin C, regardless of source. The SkinCeuticals formula has slightly better stability, 12 months versus 6 to 8 months refrigerated for the Inky List, but not 9 times better. You're paying for brand heritage, dermatologist recommendations, and that signature smell. The Inky List formula delivers comparable hyperpigmentation reduction and collagen synthesis at 1/9 the cost. For retinol alternatives, the eco-effective option is the ordinary gram-active retinoid 2% in squalene at around $11.30 for 1 ounce. It's hydroxypanacolone retinoate, which is a next-gen retinoid, sustainably sourced plant squalene, recyclable glass bottle. Cost per use is about 23 cents, using 2 to 3 drops. 50 applications, lasts 4 to 5 months. The plant alternative is Biossance Squalene plus Phytoretinol Serum at around $62 for 1.69 ounces. It's 0.5% bakuchiol, sustainably sourced sugarcane squalene, refillable glass packaging. Cost per use is about 49 cents, using 3 to 4 drops. 90 applications, lasts 6 months. For prescription comparison, tretinoin 0.025% cream, generic, is $40 to $80 with insurance for a 20-gram tube. It's the gold standard retinoid, requires prescription, standard pharmaceutical packaging. Cost per use is about 67 cents to $1.33 using a pea-sized amount. 30 to 60 applications, lasts 2 to 4 months.
The performance reality. For gentle anti-aging and maintenance, bakuchiol is clinically proven comparable to 0.5% retinol. For significant photo damage or acne, prescription tretinoin wins on speed, results in 8 to 12 weeks versus 16 to 20 weeks. The ordinary's gram-active retinoid sits in the middle, more potent than bakuchiol, gentler than prescription retinoids, and absurdly affordable. For multi-molecular weight hyaluronic acid, the eco-effective option is the ordinary hyaluronic acid 2% plus B5 at around $7.90 for 1 ounce. Multi-weight HA from sustainable fermentation, 5% vitamin B5, recyclable glass bottle manufactured in Canada using renewable energy. Cost per use is about 11 cents using 4 to 5 drops. 75 applications, lasts 5 to 6 months. The conventional option is Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Serum at around $22.99 for 1 ounce. Hyaluronic acid, molecular weight not specified, added tribulus and olive extract, plastic pump bottle. Cost per use is about 31 cents using 1 pump, 75 applications, lasts 5 months. The prestige comparison is Skin Medica HA5 Rejuvenating Hydrator at around $178 for 2 ounces. 5 molecular weights of HA, time-release delivery system, airless pump packaging. Cost per use is about $1.19 using 1 pump, 150 applications, lasts 10 months. The performance reality. The molecular weight distribution matters more than price. The ordinary specifies 3 weights: low, medium, high. Skin Medica has 5. In hydration studies, both products show similar improvements in skin moisture content after 4 weeks. You're paying around $170 more for 2 additional molecular weights and prettier packaging. Unless you're a skincare chemist, you won't notice the difference. Now, here is where things get complicated and where marketing often diverges from reality. I spent way too many hours between depositions researching this, so let me save you the trouble. Made in France or made in Korea often signals superior quality control and increasingly sustainable manufacturing practices. French cosmetics manufacturers are subject to strict EU regulations on ingredient safety, environmental impact, and worker conditions. Many facilities, like the one producing CeraVe, La Roche-Posay, and Vichy, use 60 to 80% renewable energy and have water recycling systems. Korean manufacturers have similar quality standards with the added benefit of cutting-edge fermentation technology for actives. Products manufactured in these regions aren't automatically eco-effective, but they're produced under frameworks that encourage sustainable practices.
Fermentation technology is the backbone of eco-effective active production. Instead of extracting hyaluronic acid from animal sources or synthesizing retinoids from petrochemicals, fermentation uses bacteria or yeast to produce identical molecules using renewable feedstock, usually plant sugars. The process is energy intensive but eliminates animal derivatives, reduces hazardous chemical waste, and produces consistent pharmaceutical-grade actives. Brands like The Ordinary, The Inky List, and Good Molecules source fermented actives from suppliers in France, Korea, and Japan, the same suppliers used by prestige brands. Ingredient concentration transparency varies wildly. The Ordinary and The Inky list exact percentages for every active: 10% niacinamide, 5% lactic acid, 2% alpha-arbutin. Prestige brands often list ingredients in descending order but omit percentages. You're trusting their formulation expertise and paying for it. From a cost-effectiveness standpoint, knowing you're getting exactly 5% niacinamide for $6 beats paying $85 for niacinamide-rich formula, where the concentration might be 2% or 8%. You simply don't know. Post-consumer recycled packaging is more complex than it seems. PCR plastic is genuinely recycled content, but it's often mixed with virgin plastic to maintain structural integrity, typically 25 to 50% PCR for bottles, up to 100% for caps and pumps. Glass is infinitely recyclable, but requires high-temperature processing that's energy-intensive unless done with renewable power. Aluminum is the best option, infinitely recyclable with 95% less energy than producing new aluminum, but brands rarely use it for liquid products due to reactivity concerns with certain ingredients. Carbon-neutral shipping claims should be viewed skeptically. Most brands achieve this through carbon offset purchases, like planting trees or funding renewable energy projects, rather than reducing actual shipping emissions. It's better than nothing, but not as good as using regional distribution centers to minimize transport distance. When you're comparing two similar products, the one manufactured closer to you likely has lower true environmental impact, regardless of offset claims. The practical takeaway: manufacturing location, ingredient sourcing transparency, and packaging material matter more than brand messaging about sustainability. A $15 serum manufactured in France with PCR packaging and disclosed active percentages is genuinely more eco-effective than a $68 serum from a brand that won't disclose formulation details but has beautiful marketing about earth-conscious beauty. Let's put this into a realistic morning and evening routine. I'm using products I've personally tested and repurchased with time estimates based on actual stopwatch timing, yes, I'm that person, and cost calculations based on how long each product lasts me with consistent use. For the morning routine, which takes 3.5 minutes and costs about 94 cents per day, first, cleanse with CeraVe Hydrating Cleanser. Check the link below to see the current price. It's a ceramide-dominant formula manufactured in France. Takes 30 seconds, including rinse time. Cost per use is about 6 cents. Then Serum 1, the Ordinary Niacinamide 10% plus zinc 1%. 3 drops on damp skin. 60 seconds to absorb. Cost per use is about 4 cents. Serum 2 is the Ordinary Hyaluronic Acid 2% plus B5, 4 drops, 30 seconds to absorb, cost per use about 4 cents. Moisturizer is CeraVe Daily Moisturizing Lotion, nickel size amount, 60 seconds to apply, cost per use about 8 cents. Sunscreen is Beauty of Joseon Relief Sun SPF 50+, Korean-made, reef-safe organic filters, no white cast. 1/4 teaspoon, which is the proper application amount, takes 60 seconds, cost per use about 24 cents. Total morning time, 3.5 minutes from cleanser to sunscreen application. Total morning cost, about 46 cents. For the evening routine, which takes 4 minutes and costs about 48 cents per day, first cleanse if wearing makeup with the Inky List Oat Cleansing Balm, 30 seconds massage, 30 seconds rinse, cost per use about 8 cents.
Second, cleanse with CeraVe Hydrating Cleanser at about 6 cents per use. Treatment is the ordinary gram-active retinoid 2% in squalene, 3 drops, 90 seconds to absorb before moisturizer, cost per use about 8 cents. This is used 5 nights per week with 2 nights off for skin tolerance. Moisturizer is CeraVe PM Facial Moisturizing Lotion with niacinamide and ceramides, dime size amount. 60 seconds to apply, cost per use about 14 cents. Occasionally, you'd add a hydrating mask once per week, like the Inky List Hyaluronic Acid Hydrating Serum, used as a mask layer. Quarter size amount, left on for 10 minutes, cost per use about 25 cents, but averaged over the week, that's about 4 cents per day. Total evening time is 4 minutes for the standard routine, plus 10 minutes once a week for the mask. Total evening cost is about 44 cents daily, or 48 cents when you average in the weekly mask. Combined daily skincare cost, about 90 to 94 cents for a complete morning and evening routine using eco-effective products with clinical-grade active concentrations. That's about $28 to $32 per month, around $340 to $380 per year for your entire face routine. For comparison, a single prestige serum often costs $150 to $200 and addresses only one concern.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. We've got new episodes coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the same research-backed approach to beauty that actually works without the luxury markup. If you found this helpful, leaving a 5-star rating and a quick review genuinely makes a difference. It's how other people who are tired of overpriced nonsense end up finding the show. And hit subscribe or follow so you get notified the second a new episode drops. See you next time.